In today's video, we have some NHL trade rumors concerning teams like the Calgary Flames, Winnipeg Jets, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. We also have some signings to discuss as well. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey, and of course, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you all had a great New Year's Eve. January the 1st, 2021 is officially here. 2020 is behind us, so I hope we can make 2021 not only a great year for the channel, but a great year personally as well. And I wish you all nothing but the best throughout the entire year. Now, let's jump into today's NHL news. Now, we do have some signings to discuss, and then we're going to talk about a few trade rumors. And of course, one of the rumors is also about one of the players we're talking about signing as well. So let's kick things off with the latest on PierreLuc Dubois. Now, of course, yesterday we posted a video talking about the fact that Dubois was unsigned and that he might be looking for a change of scenery. And of course, within a couple of hours of posting that video, of course, we had the announcement that Dubois had actually signed a contract. Now, of course, he signs a 2-year deal at $10 million total value, so $5 million average annual value. He gets a $3.5 million salary in year one with a $6.5 million salary in year two. So it's backloaded, which helps the team, and it also helps the player at the same time get a higher qualifying offer when the time the contract is going to be expiring for his next deal, because he would still be a restricted free agent at the end of that contract. So, of course, in that video, we talked about the possibility of him wanting a change of scenery and that a trade could be coming. And obviously, I know we had many comments saying, ha ha ha, Dubois just signed a contract. You don't know what you're talking about. He's not being traded. And, I'm here to tell you that that's not exactly the information that came out. And I hope you all understand that just because a player signed a contract, it doesn't mean he's going to be with that team to fulfill that contract or, for any length of time. He could be traded tomorrow. He could be traded next week. He could end up playing a while. Difficult to say, but the information that we have suggests that the Columbus Blue Jackets wanted to sign him to a much longer contract. This is not something that they come to agreements on here in the short term, and this is all Columbus wanted to do. Columbus sees him as a big part of their future. They really do not want to trade him, but they also wanted to ink him to a long-term contract. But clearly Dubois was not happy with the money for starters on the long-term deal and the offers that were being made. And he also, apparently the rumor is that he did not want to commit to Columbus long-term. So he wanted a short-term contract. So therefore there was a little bit of discrepancy on term and money, which is why the negotiation process drug on as long as it did. Now, of course, as we know, Jarmo Kekalainen has a bit of a history here of playing hardball with his restricted free agents. We've seen it done in the past, and in the past it also has led to a trade. Now, not every single time, but it certainly has on multiple occasions, including guys like Josh Anderson, as well as Ryan Johansson. So, could Dubois be the next guy that heads out of town because of the same sort of thing? It certainly could be possible. By no means is there a guarantee. Anytime we talk about trade rumors here on the channel, it's based on information that we're hearing from reliable sources. Ideas are being discussed, and not always lead to a trade. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Ultimately, they have to find a trade that they're satisfied with to pull the trigger on the deal. But we talk about what we're hearing that teams are kind of talking about behind the scenes. But the fact that the rumor is that Dubois did not want to commit long term, that's not a good sign for his long-term future with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Obviously, the Jackets were wanting to sign him up longer term, which makes sense. But obviously, he likely feels he can make more money by doing a shorter-term deal. And if he's not sure about sticking around long-term, that makes sense from that standpoint here as well. And we also had talk from guys like Pierre LeBrun, who's a well-connected insider, saying that Dubois actually had requested a trade. So it doesn't mean that he's going to be traded for sure, because obviously the team has to accommodate that. And they ended up coming to terms on a contract for 2 years, which kind of, he obviously agreed to, given the fact that he wants to go to training camp here shortly, doesn't want to miss time. And obviously the Jackets are probably under the understanding that they may not retain him. Beyond that, they may have to explore a trade. Like I said, we've seen it happen before where players sign a contract and are traded in the short term. Now, I would not go out there and say that Dubois is going to be traded tomorrow, next week, probably not even next month, but it may not even be this season, to be completely honest. But based on what we're hearing, at this point, I would be surprised if Dubois is a Blue Jacket beyond his current contract. But as we know as well, things can change. But that's what we're hearing. So just because he signed, I just want to caution you, it doesn't really mean anything. I mean, I read a lot of the comments, And I just tried to ignore a lot of it because, to be honest, some people like to make fun and say that they know better. But it was like, at the end of the day here, doesn't mean that a trade won't happen. It doesn't mean that he hasn't asked for a trade. It just means that maybe he's willing to play for the next little while, and that's about all he's willing to do. So clearly, that's not a good sign for the team's future. Do you want him to be the next, big forward to leave town, like we saw with the other guys I've mentioned? Like, negotiations were tight on Zach Werenski as well. Now he's stuck around. He's going to need a new deal soon as well. We've seen a lot of other players mass exodus out of Columbus a couple of off seasons ago. Obviously, we saw Bobrovsky leave. We saw Duchesne, Dzingel. Like, a lot of these guys left town, and you gotta wonder if there's something to that. I think to a degree, negotiating with Kekalainen is obviously, he's a good GM, but obviously he's going to play hardball, which is great. Obviously Tortorella's the coach. I'm not sure what it is, but we've seen a lot of players go. You can't really blame it all on one thing, because not everything has been the same way throughout the history of the team when we've seen some of these other players go. But anyway, at the end of the day here, my point is that Dubois is signed, but I'm not sure and convinced that he's going to be with the team long term. So that's just that. I mean, personally, like I mentioned before, the Winnipeg Jets are in a similar scenario with a guy named Patrick Laine. I'm not going to say that they're going to make a trade with each other, but at the same time, it would solve both issues and different players, because they could use a scoring winger in Columbus, they could use a center in Winnipeg. Neither player seems to be super happy with where they're at, so maybe it could work. Difficult to say. Winnipeg has other players that are certainly on the trade market as well, including youngster Jack Roslovic, as we mentioned, who could be another target for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Roslovic has indeed asked for a trade and is staying home right now, likely going to miss all or most of training camp with the Jets. Roslovic, I think the team has way more leverage than he does, so it's difficult to say how this plays out. It could be a scenario where he is traded if the Jets can find a trade in the short term, and it very well could be a scenario that maybe it drags out a little bit longer, like we saw with William Nylander, for example. But with the Blue Jackets, where they are, I could see them maybe having conversations around him as well. But another team that personally I think would be a great fit for a guy like Roslovic, who can be a center iceman and looking for more opportunity, would be the Chicago Blackhawks. We had word here that the Blackhawks are going to be without their top two center icemen. Jonathan Toews is out indefinitely with an undisclosed illness, could miss the whole season. We know that Kirby Dach is out injured and is pretty much guaranteed to miss the whole season. So that's a big blow to them. They're also without young forward Alex Nylander. So a guy like Roslovic would be able to come in and have a big role, possibly. I mean, the other thing, too, is the Blackhawks have yet to sign RFA center iceman Dylan Strome. What if that contract negotiation drags out and he misses part of the season? That's going to make their depth of center even worse. So, of course, like Strome, Roslovic needs a new contract, but if the Blackhawks were able to pull off a trade here with Winnipeg and they can get Strome and Roslovic under contract, then obviously that would be a young 1-2 punch up the middle. Both of them, hard to say exactly how that would work out, but there's a possibility here that the Blackhawks might not be a very good team this year, given all that's transpired here in the last little while, going to be without their top two center icemen. But I think that Winnipeg Jets forward Jack Roslovic would be a prime target for them, considering what is lack of options there on the UFA market. They're going to have to go through the route of trade if they're going to upgrade the center position. But obviously, outside of the couple of players that we're talking about here today, like Roslovic and Dubois, there's not a ton of other centers out there that may be available for trade right now. So we'll see what happens, but Roslovic is another player who very well could find himself on the move. Now, sticking with the trade rumors, and we'll jump into the signings here for the day. The Calgary Flames defenseman Noah Hanifin is still out there in the rumor mill as well. The Flames by no means are about to give him away, according to reports from Elliot Friedman, but he is a player that they're very interested in moving. I don't think things have really worked out for the best with the Flames and Hanifin since he was acquired in that big multiplayer trade with the Carolina Hurricanes. And at this point, no guarantees he gets moved. But I do think it's something that the Flames have been exploring, trying to find the right trade. But they clearly need a player back who can help them either between the blue line or in the forward group. We do know they did have previous discussions with the Boston Bruins, and now that we have a more of a certain future for Zdeno Chara, and of course Torrey Krug has departed via free agency, and the Bruins are in the midst of evaluating their back end and debating whether or not they go with their youngsters for their left side of their defense, or do they bring in somebody who's more experienced. We know Hanifin's a player that they've talked to the Flames about, that they've had a lot of interest in, really ever since he was drafted. So it could be a scenario where those talks get revisited. But there are other teams out there as well who could use help on the blue line, and the Flames are still having conversations around this player, somebody who they would really like to trade, but just trying to find the right deal. Like I said, they don't want to give him away. They need a player back who can really help them here in the short term. So if they find that right trade, Hanifin very likely could find himself on the move either before the season or sometime during training camp or here in the near future. Now, a couple other quick notes and signings here. One thing for the Vancouver Canucks, we did get confirmation on Michael Furler will not be at training camp, so he's obviously still not feeling well, still dealing with the concussion issues. So he's not going to be going to camp, so he'll go on long-term injury reserve. So obviously the Canucks will get some cap relief in that regard. Not a huge surprise, but we did get confirmation of that. We also got confirmation as well that the Winnipeg Jets have brought in longtime veteran Trevor Lewis, who played with the LA Kings for a long time, has multiple Stanley Cups to his name, will be at training camp on a professional tryout. So, of course, the Jets could certainly use an extra depth forward. So, he's a good kind of leader who could provide that necessary depth that they're looking for. So, I could see a good possibility of him getting signed there by the end of training camp. So, he'll attend Jets camp and see what happens. Go from there. The Calgary Flames signed their first-round pick, 24th overall from the 2020 draft, Connor Zary, who, of course, is with Team Canada at the World Junior Championships. He gets his 3-year entry-level contract. Of course, the Vegas Golden Knights also signed a 2020 third-round pick, left-shot defenseman Lucas Cormier, who hails from my home province here of New Brunswick. Of course, New Brunswick doesn't get a ton of players into the NHL, so when we do, of course, we're very, very proud of it. So, of course, Cormier grew up near the Moncton area, just on the outskirts of Moncton, playing hockey for the Charlottetown team in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. So, obviously, nice to see another local player get an opportunity here. So, he gets his entry-level contract for 3 years signed with the Vegas Golden Knights organization. So that is all your news for today. So let me know your comments and everything discussed down below, and we'll discuss further in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.